Now, sadly, today's freezing conditions left many MLK Day celebrations canceled in our area. But with the help of one local bookstore, folks at home were still able to commemorate the day while staying warm indoors. In a Facebook post, the Hatter's Bookstore in Princeton suggested spending some time reading about the life of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. or about the civil rights movement that he helped shape. And the bookstore's owner has some recommendations. Mine Eyes Have Seen is a visual retelling of the story of civil rights through photographs, and My Brother Martin is a children's book written by the sister of Dr. King about growing up with the future civil rights leader. She says reading these nonfiction books could be a perfect way to spend the day and maybe an opportunity to learn something that you might not have known otherwise.
What an inspiring man. I mean, an amazing speaker. What he stood for was amazing. I think he really envelopes a huge part of social justice. Even if you're not familiar with that kind of genre, it's really good to reach out of your comfort zone, especially when reading books, because you can learn a lot from just a different genre that you're not typically used to.
The Hatter's Bookshop is open Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. and on Saturdays from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m.